What the fuck? I cannot believe how many people saw and commented on my original GameCube mini video, considering I mainly just made it to compliment my Reddit post. And there's a stigma around YouTube commenters and that they're ruthless and they rip you apart in the comments, but you guys have shattered that stereotype, and you've shown me just how many incredible, supportive, and brilliant people are out there watching my videos. Many of you had really fantastic ideas for improvements on the second version, like using an integrated SD card port rather than a memory card adapter, using a motherboard that has a digital video port for progressive scan output and better resolution scaling, using a slimmer fan and controller board to cut down on the overall size, and a lot more stuff like that. And to be honest, these are actually all things that I was thinking about while I was making the V1 myself. I just kind of lacked the motivation to go the extra mile, since to me it was really just another weekend project. But now I know that with this many people watching and waiting for a revised version, I cannot possibly do that this time. We're pulling out all the stops on this one. And real quick, I wanted to mention my Patreon page where I post exclusive content, my TikTok account where I'll have some random quick videos here and there, and my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can support the channel with a one-time donation. And whether you choose to check out all of those things or none of them, make sure you at least get subscribed so you can see more stuff like this in the future. All the links to these pages and more will be in the description. Here is the new board that we're going to be using for the Mini V2, and I have already gotten rid of all the excess components that we don't need, and I was not an absolute caveman with it this time and dremeled them. I actually desoldered these. I desoldered every single one of these, and I'm very proud of myself, I will say. I was able to use my hot air station here, and I haven't really used it much before this, but this was a really good way to practice that. I think they came out really clean. I mean, and I don't really need to reuse these, obviously. They're not really any good to me. Maybe the memory card ports, maybe. But I don't really know what I would do with those. So those are all out. And there's actually one that I desoldered as well. Where is it? This is the power port that was on here, because as you can see by the dual video outs, this is a revision A/B, I'm not sure which one it is, console. So it's got the digital out, and that also means it has the separate power PCB. And I omitted this in the last one because I was using a revision C GameCube that didn't need this. But if you want digital out, you also have to deal with this. This is gonna have to get shoved somewhere in here. Either that or I'm gonna do custom regulators, but I don't really think I'm gonna do custom regulators, just to keep it simple. So that's gonna get shoved somewhere. I gotta figure that out still. I'm gonna wire up the plug that I desoldered from here, and I'm just gonna add some extension cables to this, and then solder the extension wires into this. So that way I still have a really easy modular plug that I can take this in and out with, unless it creates a problem for space. If it creates a problem for space, I'm gonna have to just desolder this and then just run wires directly from the power board to the motherboard. And that is a very real possibility, but we will see. Board is looking real slim, look at that. No components on the bottom. Everything is nicely desoldered, including the memory card ports, actually, because we're going to go without them this time. And then I got these GameCube ports right here off of a Wii motherboard that you can see, and I'm going to use these in place of where the memory cards usually are going to be. Right there, probably. And look at that. We are shorter than the heatsink now. And I actually got a hold of this fan right here, and look at that. It's like a super ultra tiny version of the first Mini. But I don't even know if I want to use this, because if I use the stock fan, I can go even slimmer. So we're gonna see. There's still a lot of variables up in the air right now, but it's coming together real good, along with the upcoming Wii project. Okay, I've done a little more thinking about this, and I think this is what I want to do. So I'm gonna take the power board, put it right here, and then take the controller ports and put them right there. I think that's probably gonna be the slimmest way to incorporate this without making it its own power brick. And I did consider that, but then that would make it so there's two power bricks. The regular GameCube power brick would go into this, and then this would go into the GameCube externally, and that just kind of sucks. So as much as I would like to make that modular port, as you can see from where it's mounted, it's not really gonna happen. CPU cooling fan right here, and then I'm gonna go with the stock fan more than likely, just to save space. We really gotta cut down on space here. And then solder it to those traces there, those through holes. And I gotta figure out how many of these I actually need to solder to the board, because I don't need all of these, I'm pretty sure. A lot of them are just ground and stuff, which I only need like a couple of. So yeah, that's the plan. That should get us pretty slim. Let me go get actually a stock fan and see how slim it really is. Okay, so that would mount up something like that, and that would leave it pretty slim. So I don't have my caliper on me right now, but let's see what can I do to scale? Okay, SD card for scale. It's just a hair taller than an SD card right now. That is pretty good. Alright, I've got the power regulator hooked up to the motherboard there with a couple strands of wire. And I got the power switch and power jack. Oh, where's it at? Right there? Connected. And we're gonna go ahead and try it out and make sure that it still boots with all the modifications that we've made so far. Alright, we're back at the ultra sketchy proving grounds. Let's go ahead and hit the power button right here. And there it is. Nice. We are clear to keep going. I've got a really, really good idea for a new cooler that I wanted to show you guys. And it's right here. It's this super, super compact heatsink and fan combo. It's from a Radeon graphics card, an older one. I thought that I was just like, well, you know, big old rectangle of cooling. So there we go. It's quite a bit smaller than the stock one. Ooh, it's hard to kind of compare them, but it's pretty freaking small. Yeah, there's a good shot. So it's pretty small, but you can trim like 7mm off the top of these and they're fine, which I learned from GameCube portable builds. So I'm gonna go ahead and see what I can do with this. I sanded it down flat because, as you can see in the middle there was a little round spot that protruded about 1/2 millimeter. I just wanted it to go ahead and be completely uniform. So it's all flat now. And I'm not a big fan of these big holes in there. That was originally there to cool the VRAM that was on the graphics card. All it's going to do is make it so there's less contact area for the GPU, which sucks. Or the CPU or whatever I end up doing. So it's going to end up resting something like that, probably right to the edge of the board, because oh wow, does it really cover the RAM? Well, here, actually, let me show you. I got this big old copper heatsink as well. This thing is super freaking heavy, and the idea was that I was just gonna cut this right there and then take that section and then just put it on the RAM, and that was gonna be good enough to cool the RAM. But now that I'm actually taking a look at this, it looks like, oh wow, it looks like that actually covers the RAM. Huh. That covers everything. Okay. So maybe I don't need that copper portion then. This might just be good enough on its own. Oh, wait, no. Hold on. I think it was because of the mounting holes that I didn't want to do it, because I wasn't going to be able to get very good pressure on the RAM. But now that I'm looking at this, I don't really know how much that matters. So, I don't know. I'll figure it out. Okay, I cut holes in the heatsink to mount it, and it mounts pretty well. But the one thing that I was worried about is definitely a factor here, and it's that the RAM is not being touched at all. And I could probably get away with shimming it, but oh man, I don't know if I want to. I put thermal pads in there just to kind of space it properly. They're not really, I didn't even take the plastic off of them. And I really don't like those holes in there. It's, you know, it's just IHS space on the GPU that's just not getting cooled, which sucks. So I don't know how viable this is really going to be. I may go back to the stock cooler and then cut out a section of it. You'll see this in a lot of GameCube portables. You can cut out a section of it right here and then stick the stock fan right there, and it'll be like inset into it so that it's still like flush the same height as the rest of the fins. And apparently that's not too bad to do, thermally speaking. It doesn't really get that hot from what I was looking up. So we may just do that. That seems like it's just gonna be like this, but cleaner, ironically, even though I'm gonna be like dremeling the crap out of the fins. I really, really wanted this to work out, but I just don't think the RAM's gonna be adequately cooled. And I could just cut this right here and then put the copper there like I wanted to, but then we have even less thermal mass here, which is already smaller than the stock one by a decent little bit. So yeah, I just think that's just not going to be enough thermal mass if I cut this. So we will probably just go back to this and then cut out a little spot for the fan. Okay, may have found the perfect middle ground for a cooler here. Oh, I don't know what this is off of. It's off like a laptop or something. It's just ultra thin. This thing is super tiny. and it intakes through the bottom of the fan right here, and then it outputs air right here. And it moves a lot of air. I mean, there's no way I can show you guys, but it's like a good amount of air. It's like more than the stock fan, actually. So I think if I use this and then I seal off the top of this here, the unit itself does a good job of sealing off this side. Either tape off or 3D print something to go right there. So then it pulls air through the side channels here on both sides. But I think that'll do. It's really slim. It's not as slim as the Radeon heatsink that I wanted to use, because this would have just gone right on top of there, and it won't snap on because I kind of like ruined it. So it won't be quite as thin as that. But I mean, this just wasn't really working anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm going to say for now that I'm going to try this. Here's a little side experiment that I've been working on. So I assembled the GameCube minis using the screws that came out of the GameCube to begin with, for the most part. Occasionally I do have to use these ultra tiny 2mm screws, and they're actually so tiny I can't find one. Here's one right here. They are ridiculously small. This is compared to some of the GameCube screws. It's a lot thinner, because these are the ones I usually assemble the case with right here. And you can see that they are a lot thicker, just because they bite into the plastic a little better. But I did want to step up my game with this next one here, so I printed out a little test piece, and this just has a bunch of different hole sizes in it, and then it's got a bunch of these threaded inserts that I'm going to be putting into it. And these things are really cool. Oh, it's rolling away. So these things are really cool. They have threads inside of them, so it's a little tough to see, but there are some threads inside of there, and those thread into 3mm screws, which I've got a whole bunch of. The outside edge of it, this thing is super tiny, holy crap. Okay, so the outside edges of it, they're kind of textured. They've almost got like a helical gear pattern to them. They're going opposite directions. The reason you want that is because what you do with this is you get it really, really freaking hot, and you put it into one of these holes. And then, see, that's why I made different size ones, because I didn't know what size I was going to need. Obviously, that one's too big. But you get it really hot, and then you put it in the hole, and ideally, when it's hot, you have to, like, really push it in there. And that's when it's biting into the plastic. Not necessarily making threads, it's just kind of seating itself in there. It's kind of the same as when you hot glue something. Hot glue is sort of just, like, hot plastic that molds itself around the thing you're trying to stick it to as it dries. That's sort of the same concept as this. So once it cools down, the plastic around it will have started just hugging that outside, and it won't be able to move. And it's just a really cool way to add like actual metal threads to a 3D printed part. And I want to try and utilize that a lot more, so that's why I bought some of these. And I'm going to do some tests, obviously, see which hole fits best, and then I will try and incorporate them into my designs. Alright, I got the inserts pressed into the piece here. They wanted to go into the middle size hole. That one seemed to fit best. These other ones going left to right were different depths, so I wanted to see what the best depth would be, and it seems like the shortest one here definitely is going to be the good one. And I did get a little too close with the soldering iron, you can see right there, but it's no big deal. But anyway, see, because now I've got myself here a M3 screw, and now I can just go ahead, and it doesn't matter which one of these I go into, they're all the same. I can thread right into it with proper metal threads instead of having to rely on biting into the plastic. And these are supposed to be really freaking strong too. That's the other reason I wanted to use them. I don't really have like a jig to test this right now, but they don't like pull out. From what I've read and watched from other people, is that it's really, really hard to pull them out once they're set. And that's exactly what I was looking for. So this should add just another little layer of professionality. I don't even know if that's a freaking word. It looks cool. It feels cool. Makes me feel cool. I like it. I'm gonna go with it.
The next day.
Been getting some work done here on the old Mini. Let me show you guys what I've got for you. So here's the power board. I've got some IDE wire that I am running all the way to the motherboard here. This wire is a lot more slim than the wire I was using previously. I don't know if I showed that off, but I was using this thicker wire, and it was just really, really impossible to kind of contort around, because I've had to take this and then kind of like move it around and like kind of figure out where I want to put it, and these giant wires were not making it easy, and they just wouldn't want to bend, so I replaced those. and those are working just fine. Let's see, I got the SD card all wired up to one of the old memory card ports, and I could have gone with the SP2 port, but I decided not to because there is a little tiny bit better SD card compatibility when you're using a SD Gecko rather than an SD to SP2. So just for the better compatibility, I went with that. Plus, I wanted to mount it up right there anyway, and the SP2 port is all the way over here, so I'd have to run the wires that much further and it would interfere with the pico and all that. But anyway, that brings me on to the pico, which is all wired up as well. We got new thermal pads in here. 3D printer is running some prints, getting some shit done, and then we'll go ahead and just fire it up real quick. I'm just using the bench supply now. All right, you just got to make sure that nothing is shorting before you turn this on. Okay, here we go. Nice. And we are in Swiss, so everything is going swimmingly. Running dangerously low on the old classic silver filament, so we are going to switch over to this copper stuff, and it looks really, really nice. I think we're going to get a good finish with that. You want to know the #1 thing that keeps me from working on this? That. And this. Hey, Bean! You want it? Alright, I'm trying to do my absolute best to remember to film my updates here. So, I've actually gotten a lot done, including the SD card slot mount, which is super freaking cool because the reason this even has to exist, see it can slide off. The reason that even has to exist is because I did not realize that there is a motherboard mounting screw right there. And so obviously to mount it to the back plate and to get it back off, speaking of which, the back plate is done, or I guess more like a base plate. That is done, and I've gotten, you can even see some of the inserts put in there. It is done, printed in that beautiful copper. Oh, I cannot wait to show it off. It's printing the rest of the shell as we speak, but that looks fantastic. But yeah, so the whole motherboard mounts to it, 4 points. One there, 2 on the other side, just like the original Mini. Very, very similar situation there. And then before I had started printing on the copper, I got a couple adapter mounting plate sort of things done. One for the pico here. It's just the silver piece right here. It just mounts to the old holes that were from the memory card slot, and it just holds onto the pico. That went really, really, really nice, actually. Really slim, very low profile mounting job there. And I mounted the front controller ports as well, and I made a admittedly horrendously ugly connector. Because, to be honest with you, in the fact that there's a separate ground one, it's probably fairly obvious. This right here, this is a 3 a.m. job. It's 3 in the morning, and I thought I counted the number of pins I needed. I was off by 1. So I said, screw it. Instead of redoing this whole connector, just added another pin, and it's fine. But anyway, that's for the controller plugs, these ones right here. It works. Kapton tape right here, because I decided this is where I'm going to mount the power supply. It's going to go right here, so I put some Kapton tape right here just in case, just to make sure it doesn't contact the board. So, everything kind of has a home now, which is nice. You can just see some more cutouts here on the base plate for the digital port and analog port. The power situation is still getting figured out. I've got like a little harness thing made up here and then like receptacles on the power supply. So that's gonna kind of get worked out. It's gonna be a really long cable to run. It's gonna go from here, ideally, probably around the heat sink and then this way. So I'm really hoping there's gonna be enough clearance there. The wires aren't that thick, so it should probably be fine. But yeah, that's what we got done at the moment. And like I said, the shell is printing right now, the rest of the shell. It's going to be a base plate like this, and then a middle piece that's kind of vertical, and then the lid. Unlike the first one, which had a face plate right here. This one is omitting the face plate. It's just going to be part of the mid shell. But hopefully it will look really good. This copper silk PLA just on this piece looks amazing. So I seriously cannot wait to see how it looks on the rest of the shell. It's like, it's kind of hard to see, but like as you turn it in the light, it like reflects in a really cool way. So yeah, I think this was a great choice for the shell. All right, are you ready? You ready to see it? Bam! That's the lid I'm going with. Oh, look at that. Look at the sheen, the shine on that. It looks so cool. I'm so excited. This design obviously is reminiscent of a actual GameCube lid. You know what a GameCube lid looks like. I don't have to explain it to you. Sans the buttons, obviously, because they don't need to be there. But anyway, yeah, that looks fantastic. There's like a line right there, which kind of sucks. I think the nozzle accidentally at the very end dragged across here a little bit and then left. And so I'm like, is what it is. And then there's a little bit of weirdness right here where it didn't quite fill in the top layer all the way, but you can hardly tell. Not too worried about it. But yeah, that looks fantastic. And then there's another piece that I had printed out earlier that I hadn't shown off yet, and it has to do with the cooling fan. So the lid is gonna kind of serve two purposes. Obviously, number one, be a lid. It is succeeding at that, so that is good. Number two is that it's going to be a duct system for, oh, I don't want to scratch up the top there. It's going to be a duct system for the cooling fan. So I've got the fan here. It's going to just fit real snug like. It's going to go in here just like that. And it just barely fits. I tried to match the contour of it. And it fits pretty well. It doesn't really move around, which is nice. And it's still easy to get back out if I need to get it out. But yeah, that's going to position the fan right here, right in the middle. It's going to be like right there. And then it's got this part right here to block off the extra fins, so it's not drawing air from the top of the heatsink, it's drawing air from the sides of the heatsink. I've tested it out and it does work really, really, really well, actually, because here's the outlet right there, and I just powered the fan for a little bit and then put my finger right here, and it's, I mean, not the most scientific test in the world, but holy crap, this thing actually moves a lot of air for being how tiny it is. And I think I was saying that earlier too, but I'm really glad that that's still translated to mounting it into this duct here. You can see kind of the internal ribs keeping it up. But it works really good. I'm actually kind of amazed how well it works. Like, it blows a ton of air. I can't explain it any better than that over a video, but it's nuts. And then this little crappy spot right here is actually very deliberate. There was just barely not enough clearance for this thing to shut with the power board being right here. The only way I was just off by like a millimeter. The only way I could get it to close was to shave a little bit off the lid. Is what it is. What are you gonna do? It fits well. This system works really good. I'm super impressed with it. And I had it running for like 20 minutes earlier in Mario Kart and no crashes, no nothing, so I know it's cooling. You know, I was saying earlier there's gonna be a base plate, a mid piece, and a lid. Well, the mid piece is done as well. And here that is. It looks fantastic. Look at that. That shine is so cool. Really a testament to Silk PLA. I love Silk PLA. I think it looks great. There's some real scumminess around the controller ports, I will admit. The printer didn't like doing those overhangs, and there's some garbage in the middle right there. So I may reprint this part. However, I did this in 0.1 millimeters, and it took absolutely forever. So I may just run with it. Because, God, this project's already gone on for like 3 or 4 straight days. Probably more like 4. I don't know. It's all a blur. And then there's a little bit of garbage going on there. And like I said, the overhangs aren't great. What can you do? You know, it's not like I'm getting these off shapeways or anything. Although that would be a really good idea. And then let me talk about here the switch that I mounted up. So this is going to be the power switch. And I offset it from the side just about the length of the little arm there. Just because I think these style switches are incredibly ugly. I'm only using it because I had them on hand. And I only want to show this tiny little piece right here. So it's not so ugly. I don't have this entire arm sticking out, the entire lever arm. So it's just that tiny little piece. And it should work absolutely fine for a power button. I figured it was going to be like near impossible to fit this entire thing in there. This is the original power button. So, yeah. I mean, actually, well, now that I look at it, maybe I'm just being lazy because it looks like it fits there. Although you'd have to account for all the travel. So, I don't know. Could have made it work, but you know what? I honestly like this better. It's a lot more low profile. It's easier to actuate. I like it. And then you can actually see here, cut out for the SD card slot, which is integrated, obviously. And then this is the mount right here for the power board. Got some cutouts for cooling, more cutouts for I/O, and this is for the duct piece right there. So yeah, the lid just goes on like that. This is not working very good because I'm doing it with one hand. Yep, perfect. Yep, that's exactly how it's supposed to sit. Anyway, it is really coming together. I'm going to do some test fits, and I'm going to hope to God that these fit. I thought I measured pretty good, so they hopefully should fit. But we're going to put it all together, and I think that's going to be it. We might just be done. I present to you the GameCube Mini version 2. The version 2 sports a full-size SD card slot wired in place of the memory card port, a low-profile power switch to save on height, the original full set of inputs and outputs on the back, including a fully functional digital video out port, and the cooling fan inside comes in at just 5mm tall. The entire unit stands at an incredibly slim 36mm, which is 67% shorter than a stock GameCube, 34% shorter than the Mini version 1, and 18% shorter than a Wii. That is right. The most annoying comment on the original video is no longer valid. I used a Creality CR10 V2 with a 0.55mm nozzle this time around for the prints. It seems to do a better job than the old TiVo Tarantula that I had used on the Mini version 1. Unfortunately though, the print is still not perfect. There's some rough parts near the controller ports, a little bit on the back, and there's a line here on the top. It's really the best I'm going to be able to get out of the CR10 with the time and resources that I have to work with right now. I'm probably already 5 or 6 complete shells in from prototypes and all that. And even if some don't agree, I think the finished product here looks absolutely amazing for what it is. Well, that's it. That's the GameCube Mini V2. Thanks for watching the video, and if you were there for the last one, thanks for watching that one as well. Of course, there's always going to be more stuff coming on the channel like this, so get subscribed if you want to see more like it. Check out all the stuff in the description. And be sure to let me know what you think of the V2 in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.